How often do your actions align with your words? It's a question that cuts right to the heart of what it means to live with integrity. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." This simple yet profound statement captures the essence of Stoicism, a philosophy that values action over words, substance over rhetoric. But why do the Stoics place such a heavy emphasis on what we do rather than what we say? And how can this ancient wisdom help us navigate the complexities of modern life? In this video, we'll explore the timeless Stoic principle of prioritizing action, unpack why it matters, and most importantly, show you how to apply it in your own life. Whether you're looking to build stronger relationships, achieve your goals, or simply live with more purpose, this is a practice that has the power to transform the way you approach every day. So let's dive in and discover how aligning your actions with your values can lead to a more meaningful and fulfilling life. For Stoics, integrity isn't about what you say, it's about what you do. This idea cuts straight to the heart of Stoic philosophy, which values action over words as the truest measure of a person's character. Take Epictetus, one of the great Stoic thinkers, who famously said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." This isn't just a call to self-reflection. It's a challenge to align your actions with your values, no matter how difficult or inconvenient that may be. Think about it. How many times have you heard someone make a promise, only to see it fall apart when it came time to deliver? Maybe it was a friend who swore they'd help you move, only to cancel at the last minute. Or a coworker who talked a big game about teamwork but left you to handle the heavy lifting. The Stoics would argue that these moments reveal more about a person's integrity than any speech ever could. Actions, after all, are where intentions meet reality, but it's not just about holding others accountable, it's about looking inward too. When was the last time your actions spoke louder than your words? When did you last follow through on something you said you'd do, even when it wasn't easy? The Stoics believed that true integrity isn't something you claim, it's something you prove day in and day out through the choices you make and the effort you put in. It's not about being perfect, it's about being consistent. This is why Stoicism places such a heavy emphasis on self-discipline and accountability. It's not enough to talk about being virtuous, you have to live it. And that's where the real challenge lies. Anyone can say they value honesty, kindness, or courage, but how many of us actually act on those values when it counts? The Stoics remind us that integrity isn't just a label, it's a practice, one that requires constant attention and effort. So, the next time you're faced with a choice, ask yourself, are your actions reflecting your words? Are you living up to the person you claim to be? Because in the end, it's not what you say that defines you, it's what you do. Why do words often fail to reflect reality? Think about it. How many times have you heard someone make a grand promise only to see nothing come of it? The Stoics saw this dynamic clearly. They believed words, while powerful, are often fleeting and can even be deceptive. Actions, on the other hand, are concrete, measurable, and undeniable. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most influential thinkers, warned against the allure of empty promises and grand speeches. He saw them as distractions, a way for people to create illusions rather than confront the truth. Take, for example, a politician who campaigns on sweeping reforms but fails to deliver once in office. The words sound inspiring, but without action, they ring hollow. This isn't just about politics, though. It's something we all face in our daily lives. How often do we tell ourselves we'll start a new habit, pursue a goal, or mend a relationship, only to let those words fade without follow-through? The Stoics would argue that this gap between words and actions is where we lose our integrity. When we speak without acting, we create a disconnect between who we claim to be and who we truly are. It's not about perfection, it's about alignment. Are your words a reflection of your values, or are they masking something deeper? This brings us to a powerful question. Do your words sometimes mask your true intentions? It's uncomfortable to consider, but it's worth reflecting on. The Stoics believed that self-awareness is the first step toward living authentically. By focusing on actions, what we actually do, we strip away the illusions and hold ourselves accountable to a higher standard. It's not about being perfect, it's about being honest. So the next time you catch yourself making a promise, big or small, pause and ask, is this something I'm ready to act on? Because in the end, it's not the words that define us, it's what we do with them. Consistency is the hallmark of a Stoic life. For the Stoics, it wasn't enough to simply talk about virtues like courage, wisdom, or justice. They believed that true strength lay in living those values every single day, no matter the circumstances. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." This wasn't just a call to action, it was a reminder that real change happens through consistent effort, not through lofty words or occasional bursts of inspiration. Take Cato the Younger, for example. He was a Roman senator known for his unshakable commitment to his principles, even when it cost him dearly. When faced with corruption and moral decay in Roman politics, Cato didn't just complain or make grand speeches. He lived his values so consistently that his actions became a beacon of integrity. People respected him not because of what he said, but because of what he did, day in and day out. His life is a testament to the Stoic belief that actions, not words, define who we are. But let's bring this closer to home. Think about your own life for a moment. How often do your actions align with the values you claim to hold dear? It's easy to say we value honesty, discipline, or kindness, but are we practicing these virtues consistently? The Stoics would argue that it's the small, repeated choices, not the occasional grand gestures, that shape our character. Whether it's showing up for a commitment, staying calm under pressure, or doing the right thing even when no one is watching, consistency is where the real work happens. So, the next time you find yourself making a promise or setting a goal, ask yourself, am I prepared to follow through, not just today, but every day? Because in the end, it's not about what you say, it's about what you do over and over again that truly matters. How do you measure virtue in yourself and others? Is it through the words someone speaks or the promises they make, or is it something deeper, something more tangible? The Stoics had a clear answer to this question. Virtue is demonstrated through actions, not words. They believed that what we do, not what we say, reveals our true character. As Seneca once put it, virtue is a practice, not a theory. It's not enough to talk about being kind, just, or courageous. You have to live those values in your daily life. Think about it this way. Imagine someone who constantly talks about the importance of helping others, but never actually lifts a finger to do so. Now compare that to someone who volunteers at a homeless shelter every weekend, not for recognition or praise, but simply because it's the right thing to do. Who would you say embodies virtue more? The Stoics would argue it's the person who acts, not the one who merely speaks. Actions, after all, are the ultimate measure of who we are. This idea isn't just ancient wisdom, it's incredibly relevant today. Consider someone in your own life who quietly does good without seeking attention. Maybe it's a coworker who stays late to help a struggling teammate, or a neighbor who shovels snow from an elderly person's driveway without expecting thanks. These small, consistent acts are where true virtue shines. They're not grand gestures designed to impress others, they're genuine expressions of character. So, what about you? What actions would truly reflect your virtues? If you value honesty, do you speak the truth even when it's uncomfortable? If you admire courage, do you stand up for what's right, even when it's easier to stay silent? The Stoics remind us that virtue isn't something we achieve overnight. It's a lifelong practice built one action at a time. And the beauty of it is that every choice, no matter how small, gives us the opportunity to align our actions with our values. The question isn't whether you're virtuous in theory, but whether you're living it out in the real world. Words can deceive even ourselves. It's a startling truth, isn't it? The Stoics understood this danger better than most. They warned that our words, whether spoken aloud or whispered in our own minds, can become tools of self-deception, masking inaction or justifying excuses. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it bluntly: if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. In other words, true progress begins with self-awareness, not with eloquent justifications or empty promises. Think about it. How often do we tell ourselves, "I'll start tomorrow," or "I'm just not ready yet"? These words might feel comforting in the moment, but they can trap us in a cycle of procrastination or denial. For instance, imagine someone who dreams of writing a book but constantly says, "I'll do it when I have more time." Days turn into months, months into years, and the book remains unwritten. Their words become a shield, protecting them from the discomfort of taking action. The Stoics would challenge this mindset. They believed that self-deception is a form of weakness, a way of avoiding the hard but necessary work of aligning our actions with our values. Are your words masking areas where you need to take action? It's a question worth asking, because the gap between what we say and what we do can reveal where we're holding ourselves back. This isn't about harsh self-criticism, it's about honest reflection. The Stoics didn't advocate for berating yourself over every mistake. Instead, they encouraged a clear-eyed assessment of where you stand. Are your words serving as excuses, or are they guiding you toward meaningful progress? The answer might be uncomfortable, but it's also empowering, because once you see the truth, you can start to act on it. Self-deception is subtle, and it often feels easier to cling to comforting words than to face the reality of what needs to be done. But the Stoics remind us that real change begins when we stop hiding behind our words and start taking responsibility for our actions. It's not about perfection, it's about progress, one honest step at a time. Do intentions matter if actions don't follow? It's a question that strikes at the heart of what it means to live a Stoic life. The Stoics believed that intentions are important. They're the seeds of our actions, the starting point for how we engage with the world. But here's the thing: intentions alone aren't enough. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good person should be one." In other words, it's not about what you intend to do, it's about what you actually do. Think about it this way: you might have the best intentions in the world. Maybe you want to be more patient with your family, or you plan to start a project that could help others. But if those intentions never translate into action, do they really count? The Stoics would argue no. Intentions are like the blueprint for a house, but without building it, you're left with nothing but an idea. And in the Stoic view, the world doesn't reward ideas, it rewards action. Let's take an example. Imagine someone who genuinely wants to help their community. They talk about organizing a food drive, they share posts about it on social media, and they even feel a deep sense of purpose when they think about it. But week after week, they never take the first step to make it happen. Their intentions are noble, but without action, they're just words. The Stoics would say that this person is missing the mark. It's not enough to want to do good, you have to do good. So here's a question for you. Are your intentions translating into meaningful actions? It's easy to get caught up in the planning phase, to think about all the things you could do or should do. But the Stoics remind us that life is short, and the only way to make a difference is to act. What's one thing you've been meaning to do but haven't started yet? What's stopping you from taking that first step? Because in the end, it's not about having the right intentions, it's about having the courage to follow through. Action requires discipline, not just desire. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't see action as something that happens in a burst of inspiration or as a reaction to external events. Instead, they viewed it as a deliberate, intentional practice, a skill that requires constant effort and self-control. Epictetus put it plainly when he said, "No great thing is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig." If you tell me that you desire a fig, I answer that there must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen. In other words, meaningful action isn't about impulsiveness or waiting for the perfect moment. It's about showing up consistently, even when it's hard. Take Seneca, for example. One of the most prolific writers of his time, he didn't rely on fleeting inspiration to produce his works. Instead, he adhered to a disciplined daily routine. He wrote every day, often early in the morning, dedicating time to his craft regardless of how he felt. This wasn't just about productivity, it was about cultivating a habit of action that aligned with his values. For Seneca, writing wasn't just an outlet, it was a form of self-discipline, a way to sharpen his mind and reinforce his Stoic principles. So, what does this mean for us? It's easy to say we want to improve our lives, to achieve our goals, or to live more virtuously. But desire alone isn't enough. The Stoics remind us that true progress comes from the small, consistent actions we take every day. What disciplined actions can you take today to move closer to your goals? Maybe it's setting aside time to reflect, committing to a daily practice, or simply showing up for something you've been avoiding. The key is to start small, stay consistent, and remember that discipline is the bridge between desire and achievement. The Stoics didn't just preach this idea, they lived it, and by adopting their approach we can transform our own lives, one disciplined action at a time. How do small actions shape your character? It's a question that might seem simple on the surface, but when you dig deeper, it reveals a profound truth about how we become who we are. The Stoics believed that character isn't built in grand, sweeping gestures, but in the accumulation of small, consistent actions. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, every small choice, every tiny act of discipline or kindness is an opportunity to strengthen your virtue. Over time, these small actions add up, shaping not just your habits but your very identity. Think about it this way, a single raindrop might seem insignificant, but when many come together, they can carve canyons. Similarly, the little things you do every day, like choosing patience over frustration, showing gratitude, or taking responsibility for your mistakes, might not feel life-changing in the moment. But over weeks, months, and years, they shape the person you become. The Stoics understood this deeply. They saw virtue not as something you achieve in one dramatic moment, but as something you cultivate through countless small, intentional acts. Let's bring this into a modern context. Imagine someone who makes a habit of holding the door open for strangers or taking a moment to listen when a friend is struggling. These actions might seem small, even trivial, but they're expressions of kindness and respect. Over time, these repeated acts reinforce the values of compassion and empathy, becoming part of that person's character. The Stoics would argue that this is how we build a life of meaning, not by waiting for the perfect opportunity to prove ourselves, but by showing up consistently in the small, everyday moments. So, what small actions can you take to align with your values? Maybe it's something as simple as pausing before you react in frustration, or taking a few minutes each day to reflect on what you're grateful for. The key is to start small and stay consistent. Remember, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. Every time you choose to act in a way that aligns with your principles, you're not just doing something good, you're becoming someone better. And that's the power of small actions. They might seem insignificant in the moment, but over time, they have the potential to transform your character and ultimately your life. How do you respond when your actions are judged? It's a question that can stir up a lot of emotions: defensiveness, frustration, maybe even self-doubt. But here's where Stoicism offers a powerful perspective. Instead of letting criticism derail you, focus on what you can control, your own actions. The Stoics believed that external judgments, whether praise or blame, are ultimately outside of your power. What matters is how you choose to act, regardless of what others say or think. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: "If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said, but answer, 'He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone.'" It's a striking reminder that the opinions of others don't define you. Criticism at its core is just noise, an external event that you can choose to rise above. Take the example of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher. Despite holding one of the most powerful positions in the world, he faced constant scrutiny and criticism from political rivals and the public. Yet he remained steadfast in his principles, focusing on his duties and the virtues he valued. He didn't waste energy defending himself against every accusation or trying to win over detractors. Instead, he directed his efforts toward what he could control: his own character and actions. So here's a question to reflect on. Do you let others' words distract you from your actions? It's easy to get caught up in what people think or say about you, but the Stoic approach invites you to step back and ask yourself whether those opinions truly matter. Are they helping you grow, or are they just pulling you away from your goals? When you shift your focus inward, to your intentions, your choices, and your integrity, you free yourself from the weight of external judgment. And that's where true strength lies. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. For the Stoics, this wasn't just a saying, it was a way of life. They believed that silence wasn't passive, it was a deliberate choice, a form of action in itself. By choosing silence, they allowed their deeds to carry the weight, letting their actions do the talking. Seneca, one of the most prominent Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." That delay, that pause, is where silence thrives. It's in those quiet moments that we step back, reflect, and decide how to respond rather than react. Silence becomes a tool for clarity, a way to align our actions with our values instead of being swept away by emotion or ego. Think about it. How often do we feel the need to explain ourselves, to defend our choices, or to prove our worth through words? The Stoics would argue that this isn't necessary. When we act with integrity, when we lead by example, our actions become the loudest statement we can make. Imagine someone who consistently shows up for others, who works diligently without seeking recognition, who remains calm in the face of chaos. Their silence isn't empty, it's powerful. It's a testament to their character, a quiet strength that doesn't need to announce itself. Take, for instance, a leader who doesn't boast about their achievements but instead focuses on serving their team. They don't need to shout about their contributions because their actions speak for them. Their consistency, their reliability, and their humility become their legacy. This is the Stoic approach: to let your deeds define you, not your words. So here's a question for you to reflect on. When have your actions spoken louder than your words? Think about a time when you chose to stay quiet, to listen, or to act without fanfare. What did that silence achieve? How did it shape the outcome? These moments of quiet action often leave the deepest impact both on ourselves and on those around us. Silence, in its own way, can be one of the most profound forms of action. How do actions lead to true freedom? At first glance, it might seem like freedom is about having endless options or no constraints at all. But the Stoics saw it differently. For them, true freedom wasn't about the external world. It was about mastering the one thing you can always control: your own actions. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic thinkers, put it simply: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. In other words, freedom comes from recognizing that your choices, not your circumstances, define your life. Think about it this way: when you focus on taking deliberate, intentional actions, you're no longer at the mercy of external forces. You're not waiting for the perfect moment, the right opportunity, or someone else to give you permission. You're stepping into the driver's seat of your own life. And that's where real freedom begins. It's not about avoiding challenges or hardships, it's about facing them head-on, knowing that your response is entirely within your control. Consider someone who's struggled with a bad habit like procrastination or self-doubt. At first, it feels like they're trapped, stuck in a cycle they can't break. But when they start taking small, consistent actions like setting clear goals, creating routines, or practicing self-discipline, something shifts. Over time, those actions compound and they begin to feel more in control. They're no longer a passive participant in their own life. They're actively shaping it. That's the power of action. It transforms helplessness into agency. So, what actions can you take to feel more in control of your life? It doesn't have to be something grand or life-altering. Start small. Maybe it's committing to a daily walk to clear your mind, or setting aside 10 minutes each evening to reflect on your day. The key is consistency. Every time you choose to act, you're reinforcing the idea that you have power over your own life. And with each step, you're moving closer to that inner freedom the Stoics valued so deeply. Freedom isn't something you find, it's something you create, one action at a time. How do you respond when your actions fall short? For many of us, failure can feel like a heavy weight, something to avoid at all costs. But the Stoics saw it differently. To them, failure wasn't a dead end, it was a stepping stone. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." In other words, setbacks are not just obstacles, they're opportunities. They're the moments that shape us, teach us, and ultimately make us stronger. Think about Thomas Edison, for example. He famously failed over 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb. But he didn't see those attempts as failures, he saw them as discoveries. Each one taught him something new, guiding him closer to his goal. That's the Stoic mindset in action. It's not about avoiding failure, it's about learning from it and using it to refine your actions. So, how can you apply this to your own life? When you face a setback, ask yourself, what can this teach me? How can I grow from it? Instead of dwelling on what went wrong, focus on what you can do differently next time. Failure isn't the opposite of success, it's a part of the journey. And by embracing it, you're not just strengthening your actions, you're building resilience one step at a time. Accountability is the bridge between words and actions. It's where intention meets reality. For the Stoics, taking responsibility for what we do was non-negotiable. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, put it plainly: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. What he's saying here is that while we can't always control what happens to us, we absolutely can control how we respond, and that response starts with holding ourselves accountable. Think about it this way: when you make a mistake, do you try to shift the blame or do you own it? Stoics believe that owning your actions, even the messy ones, is the first step toward growth. Take, for example, someone who misses a deadline at work. Instead of making excuses or pointing fingers, they step forward and say, "This is on me. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again." That's accountability in action. It's not about perfection, it's about taking responsibility and committing to do better. So, how do you hold yourself accountable for your actions? It's a question worth sitting with. Maybe it's by setting clear intentions and reflecting on them daily. or perhaps it's by asking a trusted friend or mentor to keep you honest. Accountability isn't just about admitting when you're wrong. It's about aligning your actions with your values even when it's hard, and that's where the real power lies. How do habits shape your actions? If you've ever wondered why some people seem to consistently act with purpose and integrity, while others struggle to follow through, the answer often lies in their habits. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that our character isn't formed through grand, one-time gestures, but through the small, repeated actions we practice every single day. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: every habit and capability is confirmed and grows in its corresponding actions. In other words, what we do repeatedly becomes who we are. Think about it. If you practice patience in small moments, like waiting in line without frustration or listening to someone without interrupting, you're not just being patient in that moment, you're building a habit of patience. Over time, that habit becomes a part of your character. It's not about being perfect every time. It's about showing up consistently, even when it's hard. The Stoics saw habits as the bridge between our intentions and our actions. They knew that if you want to live a virtuous life, you can't just rely on good intentions. You need to create habits that align with your values. Consider the story of someone learning to meditate daily. At first, it might feel awkward or even pointless. But over weeks and months, the habit takes root. The act of sitting quietly, focusing on the breath, and reflecting on the day becomes second nature. This person isn't just meditating, they're cultivating a habit of mindfulness and self-awareness. And as that habit grows, it begins to influence other areas of their life. How they respond to stress, how they communicate with others, even how they see themselves. So, what habits can you cultivate to align your actions with your values? Maybe it's starting your day with a moment of reflection or committing to acts of kindness, no matter how small. The key is to choose habits that reflect the kind of person you want to become, because in the end, it's not the grand gestures that define us, it's the habits we build one day at a time. What stops you from taking action? It's a question worth sitting with for a moment. For the Stoics, procrastination wasn't just a bad habit, it was a failure to align your actions with your purpose. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, put it bluntly: you are living as if destined to live forever. Your own frailty never occurs to you. You don't notice how much time has already passed. Time, he reminds us, is fleeting. Every moment we delay is a moment we can never reclaim. The Stoic approach to procrastination is rooted in a simple but powerful idea: action is the antidote. They believed that indecision and delay are often born from overthinking, fear of failure, or even perfectionism. But life doesn't wait for us to feel ready. It's happening now, and the only way to live in harmony with our goals is to act, even if the steps we take are small. Imagine someone who's been putting off a fitness goal. Instead of waiting for the perfect workout plan or the right time, they decide to start with just 10 minutes of movement a day. That small act of decisiveness builds momentum, and soon, what felt impossible becomes part of their routine. So, what's one action you've been putting off that you can start today? It doesn't have to be grand or life-changing. It could be as simple as sending that email, making that call, or even taking a few minutes to organize your workspace. The Stoics remind us that the value lies not in the size of the action, but in the act of moving forward. Every step, no matter how small, brings you closer to living in alignment with your purpose. And isn't that what we're all striving for? Courage is action in the face of fear. It's not about having no fear, it's about moving forward despite it. The Stoics held courage in the highest regard, not as a grand declaration of bravery, but as a quiet, deliberate choice to act when it matters most. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action." What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, the very fear or challenge you face is the opportunity to demonstrate courage. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment or the right words, it's about stepping into the uncertainty and doing what needs to be done. Take, for example, someone who decides to speak up in a meeting despite their anxiety. They might feel their heart racing, their palms sweating, and their mind racing with doubts. But they choose to voice their idea anyway, not because they're fearless, but because they know the value of their contribution outweighs their fear. That's courage in action, small yet significant. It's not about being reckless or seeking glory. It's about aligning your actions with your principles, even when it's uncomfortable. So, what courageous action can you take today? It doesn't have to be a life-altering decision. It could be as simple as having that difficult conversation you've been avoiding, standing up for someone who needs support, or even taking the first step toward a goal that scares you. The Stoics remind us that courage isn't reserved for heroes, it's a daily practice, available to anyone willing to act in the face of fear. What's one thing you've been hesitating to do? How might taking that step change your life or the lives of those around you? Think about this for a moment. How do your actions truly impact the people around you? The Stoics had a clear answer. Actions, far more than words, are the foundation of trust and connection in any relationship. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, put it simply, "What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say." In other words, your behavior is your truest form of communication. It's not about what you promise or proclaim. It's about how you show up day after day in your relationships. Let's take a closer look at what this means. Imagine someone who constantly tells their friend they'll be there for them, but when that friend is going through a tough time, they're nowhere to be found. Now compare that to someone who may not say much but consistently shows up, listens, and offers support when it's needed most. Which friend would you trust more? The Stoics would argue that the second person, through their actions, has built a deeper, more meaningful bond. Their behavior aligns with their values, and that consistency is what creates genuine connection. Here's a practical example. Think about Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher. Despite his immense power, he was known for treating everyone with respect, from senators to servants. He didn't just talk about fairness or equality, he embodied it through his actions. By doing so, he fostered trust and loyalty, not because of his title, but because of how he treated others. His life is a reminder that respect and kindness, when practiced consistently, can transform even the most challenging relationships. So, how can you apply this in your own life? Start by reflecting on your actions. Are they aligned with the kind of relationships you want to build? Do you show up for the people who matter to you in ways that reinforce trust and connection? The Stoics would encourage you to focus less on what you say and more on what you do. Small, consistent acts of kindness, reliability, and respect can have a ripple effect, strengthening your relationships over time. What's one action you can take today to make a positive impact on someone you care about? How often do you pause to reflect on the things you've done or the choices you've made? For the Stoics, this wasn't just an occasional exercise, it was a daily habit, a way to ensure that their actions stayed in harmony with their values. Seneca, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "When the mind is most at liberty, it reflects on itself. Night calls on us to take stock, and the whole day demands an accounting of itself." In other words, reflection wasn't just a nice idea, it was a non-negotiable part of living a meaningful life. Think about it. When you take the time to look back on your day, you're not just replaying events in your mind. You're asking yourself critical questions. Did I act in alignment with my principles? Did I contribute to the well-being of others? Did I let external pressures dictate my behavior? This kind of self-assessment isn't about beating yourself up over mistakes, it's about learning, growing, and becoming more intentional with your actions. Consider the story of a young professional who, after years of feeling stuck in their career, decided to dedicate just 10 minutes each evening to reflecting on their day. They'd ask themselves, what went well, what could I have done differently? Over time, this simple practice helped them identify patterns, moments when they hesitated to take risks or times when they let fear hold them back. By reflecting, they became more aware of their tendencies and started making small, deliberate changes. Eventually, those changes added up, leading to greater confidence and success. So, what about you? What actions from today or even this week could you reflect on to grow? Maybe it's a conversation where you didn't speak up when you should have, or a moment when you let frustration get the better of you. Reflection isn't about dwelling on the past, it's about learning from it. It's about creating a feedback loop where your actions today inform your choices tomorrow. And that's the power of Stoic reflection. It's not just a tool for self-improvement, it's a way to live with greater purpose and clarity. Your legacy is built by actions, not words. This is a truth the Stoics held close to their hearts. They believed that what you do, not what you say, is what truly shapes the world around you and how you're remembered. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, put it this way: waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be one. In other words, it's not enough to talk about virtue or greatness, you have to live it. Your actions are the measure of your character and the foundation of your legacy. Think about historical figures like George Washington or Florence Nightingale. They didn't just speak about courage or compassion, they embodied those values through their actions. Washington led a nation through revolution and set the precedent for peaceful transitions of power. Nightingale transformed nursing and healthcare through her tireless work and dedication. Their legacies weren't built on speeches or promises, but on the tangible impact of their deeds. So, what about you? What actions will define your legacy? The Stoics would remind us that it's not about grand gestures or public recognition. It's about the small, consistent choices you make every day, how you treat others, how you face challenges, and how you contribute to the world around you. Your legacy isn't something you leave behind in the future. It's something you're building right now with every decision and every act of integrity. How does gratitude influence your actions? It's a question the Stoics ask themselves often, and their answer might surprise you. For them, gratitude wasn't just a fleeting feeling or a polite gesture. It was a powerful tool for shaping how they lived and acted. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." In other words, gratitude shifts your focus from what's missing to what's already present. And when you truly appreciate what you have, it naturally motivates you to act in ways that honor and preserve those gifts. Think about it this way: when you're genuinely grateful for the people in your life, you're more likely to show kindness, to listen deeply, or to lend a hand when they need it. Gratitude doesn't just sit in your heart, it moves you to do something meaningful. Take Marcus Aurelius, for example. As a Roman emperor, he could have easily taken his power and privilege for granted. But instead, he wrote in his personal journal about the importance of being thankful for the lessons others taught him, even in difficult moments. His gratitude fueled his sense of duty, driving him to lead with humility and fairness. So let's bring this back to you. How can gratitude inspire your actions today? Maybe it's as simple as thanking a colleague for their hard work, or taking a moment to appreciate the small comforts in your life, and then letting that appreciation guide your next steps. When you act from a place of gratitude, you're not just reacting to the world around you, you're actively shaping it in a way that reflects your values. The Stoics remind us that gratitude isn't passive, it's a call to action. And the more you practice it, the more you'll find that your actions become a natural extension of the gratitude you feel. What changes can your actions bring? This is a question the Stoics would ask us to sit with, because for them, meaningful change wasn't about grand gestures or lofty words. It was about the small, consistent actions we take every single day. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." In other words, change begins the moment we decide to act, no matter how small or insignificant that action might seem. Think about it. Every significant transformation in history started with someone taking a single step. Consider the story of Rosa Parks, whose quiet but decisive action on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama, sparked a movement that changed the course of history. It wasn't a speech or a manifesto that shifted the world. It was her refusal to move, a simple yet powerful act of courage. The Stoics would point to this as proof that even the smallest actions, when aligned with principle and purpose, can ripple outward and create profound change. But let's bring this closer to home. What change can your actions create in your life or community? Maybe it's as simple as showing up for a friend in need, volunteering your time to a cause you care about, or even just choosing to respond calmly in a moment of frustration. These actions might not feel monumental in the moment, but over time they accumulate. They shape who you are and the world around you. The Stoics remind us that we don't need to wait for the perfect opportunity or the grand stage. We can start right where we are with whatever we have. So, what's one small step you can take today? What's one action that aligns with the kind of change you want to see? Because here's the truth: change doesn't happen in the abstract. It happens in the choices you make, the habits you build, and the way you show up day after day. And that's where the Stoics invite us to begin, not with words but with action. Let's bring this all together. Throughout this video, we've explored why Stoics place such a heavy emphasis on actions over words. It's not just about avoiding empty promises or grand declarations. It's about living with integrity, aligning what you do with who you want to be. The Stoics believed that true freedom and growth come from taking responsibility for your actions, not from controlling how others perceive you. When you focus on what you can control, your choices, your efforts, your response to challenges, you step into a life of authenticity and strength. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This is the heart of Stoic philosophy, understanding that your actions, not your words, define you. It's in the small, consistent steps you take every day that you build a life of purpose and meaning. So here's a challenge for you. Take a moment to reflect. Are there areas in your life where your words and actions don't quite align? Where could you step up and take responsibility, even if it's uncomfortable? Remember, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. Every effort you make to align your actions with your values is a step toward becoming the person you aspire to be. If this idea resonates with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. How do you focus on actions over words in your own life? Share your experiences in the comments below. Let's learn from each other. And if you found this video helpful, consider subscribing for more insights on Stoicism and practical ways to live with purpose and resilience. Thanks for watching, and remember, the power to shape your life lies in your actions. See you next time.